right, well, welcome everyone to our third in a series of webinars. This is the Pandemic Survival Guide for Residential Contractors. And my name is Ed Earl. I'm here with my coaching colleagues, Paul Sanneman and David Luperger, and we are excited to see you all here. We've got, 250 or so people signed up, and looks like a good amount of you are already on board. So thank you very much. We've got a lot of I think, some promising information here following up from some of the loan information that we've experienced in the last week. And so let's get to it. Let's start with a quick introduction. Again, my name is Ed Earl. I'm based in San Diego, California, and I run a construction project management company where I serve as an owner's rep. So I'm hired by homeowners that are building custom homes or doing high-end remodels, and I help them put their team together and then manage that process for them. I also have an MBA from Stanford, so I have a business background as well. And I started in commercial construction about 30 years ago, and then switched to residential about 20 years ago. So, Paul, how about you?
Well, my master's is from Cal Poly, which isn't nearly impressive, but it's a good school. I've been doing this for 35 years, mostly with residential contractors between 2 million and 50 million. I have, 80,000, a lot of hours doing this. And it's interesting. I've never been through a pandemic before. Now, a lot of exciting things are happening, interesting things are happening. So it's a whole new ball game. And I think it's sort of like the instant recession, right? Instead of taking 6 months, it takes 3 weeks. So we'll see what happens. But where there's adversity, there's opportunity. And I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm excited to see how we come out of this one.
And I'm David Luperger, and my graduate degree is from the School of Hard Knocks. So I am a former building contractor, and anybody who has done this, you understand that there's a very steep learning curve and it never ends. So I did that for about 25 years, have been involved now on the coaching and consulting side for about 10 years. So we're really going to dive into this, because between the three of us, we literally have 90 plus years of experience in residential remodeling. That's the purpose of these programs, to get together, to share some things that are working, share some best practices, and see if we can get through this together. Go ahead, Ed.
Great, thanks, David. The other thing following up on that as well is we really encourage any of you to reach out to us. If you have any questions about anything that we're presenting here today, you'll kind of get the idea for each of our specialties. I've really become a student here of all of these loans and understanding that whole concept. I'm very up to speed on all the technology and all of the virtual technology that we're all using. Paul is an absolute marketing guru and has wonderful marketing ideas. And David is so solid on the organizational side and all of the systems and organizations and running a successful construction business. So that's our phone numbers, and our emails are on the screen there. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time. Okay, so the purpose of this weekly webinar is really to provide you with the most up-to-date and current information that we can have. We know that many of you are probably getting webinared out at this point, and so our commitment is to try to keep this presentation to 30 minutes, all right? So we're gonna be moved pretty quickly. We're gonna try to get through as much content as we can. We're talking to over 50 residential contractors every week. We have clients in every major metropolitan market, so we have our pulse on what's happening in every part of the country. And this webinar is our opportunity to be able to share with you this real-time advice, as well as strategy and advice that we are not only giving to our clients, but we've got some really great approaches and some really good ideas that we've gotten from our clients that we'll be sharing with you on these webinars as well. So let's start, as we always do, with a state of the nation here and look at where we are. As of today, there are 5 states that are now prohibited construction. So if you're residing in any one of those red states, you are no longer allowed to practice construction. You can see in the 2 weeks or so that we've been tracking this, how it's gone from a whole bunch of gray states where there are no restrictions to now there's only 7 states that have no type restrictions on construction. Just to give you a real quick, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I've also noticed this sort of a political war between the feds, the governors, the mayors, and I mean, I have clients today where in one city they were working because the governor said this, and like 3 miles away they weren't working because the governor said this. It's like the Bible; everybody interprets it in their own way, right? So the rules are totally up for grabs. I mean, even though this gives you a general idea, it really depends on your state, your governor, your local mayor. I mean, I've got a guy, for example, they were going full guns on a high rise right next to where they shut him down on a house. And the rationalization was the high rise is providing more, they interpret it as if it's providing more more places to live, then it counts, even if it's a high rise where the apartments are $3 million a shot. And the guy working on the house next door, since it's a remodel, doesn't count, and they shut him down. So the rules are all over the place. I mean, there's this general guidelines, but they sort of apply and don't apply. So you can't, until you check with your local, governor, mayor, whatever, it varies all over the place. Because we work with 50 people in different places, and there's no consistency.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing we're finding too is even in the states where they're shut down, they have to at least let you get the house to the point where it can be shut down for a longer period of time, meaning that like it's dried in. So if you've got a job that, let's say you're just starting on the framing, the experience that we've had from our clients in Pennsylvania, in Washington, is that they will allow you to continue construction until the point where you get it dried in, right? So the roof is it's papered, it's wrapped, the windows are in, and then at that point, then they shut you down. So if you're in one of the neighboring states to one of these red states and you feel like you might be next, our advice is get the interior work done more quickly. Prioritize that because that's more likely to get shut down. We had one client in Pennsylvania, and he had 2 days. He was getting ready to finish a house and get it turned over to his client, and they gave him 2 days. So he pulled all his crews off, everything else. They worked 24/7, and they weren't actually able to get it finished up and get it turned over to their client. So. All right, so let's move on now and talk about the aid, the CARES Act. This has been the hot topic for the last 2 weeks. Still a lot of confusion, but we're finally starting to get some clarity and some information.
Right. Show me the money has actually happened, right, Ed?
Right, exactly. So this is, there's a lot of programs out there. These are the 4 that I've identified that are the 4 that are most likely to benefit you as an owner of a construction company and or your employees. So the first one is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. We talked about that last week and walked you through the steps on how to apply for that. I'm going to give you a little bit more of an update on that in a minute. The big one this last week has been this Paycheck Protection Program. A lot of people have applied for that. Basically, these 2 programs, the EIDL and the PPP, are the 2 programs that are getting the most activity right now. And if you haven't yet applied for these 2, do it today because this money is going fast. The next one is the direct payments to workers and families. That's the $1,200 that we supposedly are all supposed to get that you don't even need to apply for. The limit there is, of course, if you make over $75,000 as an individual or $150,000 as a married couple filed jointly, and that's your AGI limit, then you won't get that money. And then the unemployment benefits, we heard Paul today that they've started that extra $600 for unemployment.
Yeah, right? Yeah, my daughter's in New York and she started receiving the extra $600 this week.
Yeah, okay, great. All right, so help is on its way, maybe not. This is the latest thing that's now come out is President Trump actually removed the Inspector General who was overseeing the government's aid program. So that doesn't seem to help as far as trying to get any answers for things. So hopefully that won't impact it too much, but that's the latest and greatest on that. Let's talk for a minute about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. A couple of things. This is off the SBA website. Notice that it says we'll provide up to $10,000 of economic relief. Also notice that it says that $10,000 advance will not have to be repaid. For those of you that don't know, when you apply for this loan, at the end, there's a place where you can check a box. You can ask for a $10,000 advance. You put in your bank account number, your routing number, and your email address and hit send. Now, as far as we know, if anyone on this call knows otherwise, please make a comment. But as far as we know, no one has yet received that money. I applied.
Or even received an email, right?
Yeah.
Right.
No confirmations.
Even
yeah.
No confirmations at all. You get a confirmation when you apply, and it actually shows you what your application number is, but nothing after that. And of course, it says right here, the funds will be available within a couple of days. Well, this is now the latest that I saw in an Inc. magazine article. This was the day before yesterday. So again, this stuff is changing all the time. But according to this, there was a bulletin that was released on April 6th that said that the SBA has decided to implement a $1,000 cap per employee on that $10,000 advance. So if a business has 3 employees, you could only get $3,000, not $10,000.
Now, I just heard from someone this morning that was supposedly a high source in the government, who knows how that goes, right? That said that was not true, and that was taken back, and that it is $10,000, and it isn't $2,000 for a $1,000 employee. So it shows, I mean, you got 2 credible sources that are telling you different things.
Yeah.
So the truth is, we don't know.
No.
And the other thing is that they're now saying too, and this article says that they're going to roll this $10,000 into the PPP loan. So we don't know whether that's true or not. The one thing we do know is that 3-day, that's going to get funded in 3 days, that's gone out the window, because that's definitely not happening.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Paycheck Protection Program. This came live last Friday. I actually am with Bank of America. Bank of America was the first bank to go live with that program. I shared on our webinar last week that I actually applied. I thought I was all excited and I was all set. After the webinar, I found out that my tax ID number on my B of A credit card didn't match my tax ID number for my payroll, because I have 2 different entities, and therefore I was excluded. So I had to go back, and what I did was ended up going through a local bank. And that's the hot tip that we can offer to you, is that if you're trying to get it done through Chase or Wells Fargo or B of A, it's a mess. Paul, you tried with Chase, right?
Well, yeah, what happened with me and Chase is I finally got, the first one said, hey, get in line. So I got in line. The second one said, hey, it's time to apply. So I downloaded the app and tried to apply. And it wanted a bunch of, like several things, such as the 940, a tax return, a bunch of stuff. So I called my CPA and said, hey, Priscilla, can you do this for me? And she goes, no, CPAs aren't allowed to do this according to the rules or whatever. You have to do it yourself because you have to test that you did it. So I said, can you at least upload all the files? So she uploaded all the files to Dropbox, and then I went and I hit the hit button and tried to download them. And the first thing it says was, these files are too big to be downloaded. So I would stop. So, because it was only take 5 megabytes and my files were 45 megabytes. So I had to go through and I had to condense all the files, change them all around. And I had somebody else do that because I'm not that computer adept. Got them all back and I finally loaded them all up and I submitted it. And they said, ta-da, you've officially applied for the loan. We'll let you know when it's funded. And I haven't heard anything since then. Nothing. So I have no idea.
Can I do a simple summary based on your experience, both of you? Can I simply say that if you have a relationship with a banker at a local bank, that's the way to go. All right? They return your call. They should guide you through this. The large platforms are failing. The personal relationships are working.
Right. And everybody we know that has been funded, we've known 1, 2, 3. I guess we have 3 people that actually have gotten money. They did it through a local bank. Now, the other thing, which is interesting, the 3 people that got money, one, they had a ton of cash. They didn't need it anyway, so it's not based on need. And secondly, they were the least affected. They were where they like Arkansas,
Montana. Yeah, right.
Places
so the states
that
where,
there's the least amount of problems. So they had the least need and the least problems, and they got funded first. So it's obviously who gets in there first and fills out the application. That's what it comes down to.
And the other thing I want to say as well, so when I ended up reapplying through my local bank, Bank of Southern California, in 2 hours, it was completely done. The banker sent it back to me. Here's what you needed. He gave me an FTP site. I had 61 pages that I had to upload, but it went through seamlessly. And within 2 hours, he said, you're submitted, you're good to go. Now, the other problem is, or challenge is, that everyone is asking for slightly different information. Like for my lender, I didn't need to include a copy of my driver's license, but Paul, I think you did. I had to include articles of incorporation and corporate bylaws. Other people haven't. So you really don't know. But the last thing I want to say about this is, last Friday, Bank of America in one day had 85,000 customers apply, and for a total of $22.2 billion. That's one bank in one day. And the whole program is only $350 billion. So if you guys haven't submitted it yet, do it today, because it may already be too late.
Right. So here's a question. Do you know, Ed, if you can go through a credit union? Do we have any idea?
So I actually tried to go through my local credit union, and they were not, while they were an SBA approved lender, they were not approved to do this program. So it just depends. It's a case by case basis.
Right.
Okay.
I want to point out one thing for those of you that are, this is the application that you're going to fill out for the Paycheck Protection Program. Last week it was online. This week it's not, because it's been revised. But I was told by my banker that you want to check when it says purpose of the loans, make sure to not just check payroll, also check the other boxes, which is lease expenses, mortgage and interest, and utilities, because that supposedly, according to my banker, moves you up higher in the qualification list. The second thing is that while everything else on this front page you can just check up a checkbox on, there's two places where you actually have to initial it. So you're going to need to print the application out and initial it. I didn't initial it the first time, and it got kicked back to me. So I just wanted to point that out. There's questions about, will a contractor lose loan forgiveness if you lay employees off now and then you rehire them after you receive your PPP money? And the ruling that we got from one of the top construction attorneys in San Francisco is this response here on this screen, which is no, you will not lose your loan forgiveness. A PPP loan will be forgiven to the extent that the payroll paid to those rehires or new hires occurs after February 15th and before April 26th.
One more comment about the credit union, Ed.
Yes.
So here's one of our visitors that their credit union didn't offer, SBA loans. And so they tried contacting other institutions, but if they did not have a pre-existing relationship, they are not processing those requests. They're not doing it for visitors.
Ed has a different experience, because did you work with the bank you got it from?
I had never worked with the Bank of Southern California before. Now, they weren't a credit union, and I did happen to know one of the directors there, so that helped. But and I, said, hey, I think I might be switching over from B of A now after this great experience. But I think if you kind of maybe dangle that carrot a little bit, it may not work with credit unions, but it will work with local banks.
Very good.
And then the last question is, people are saying, well, I don't want to do this because it's not going to get forgiven, and then I don't want to have to owe all of this money. But it's very clear that this will be forgiven. This is the conditions under which it's forgiven. This is a document that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce put together. It's a really nice 4-page summary, which we have. I also have the 31-page document that's from the U.S. Treasury Department. Both of those I'm happy to send to you. So if you want to just kind of confirm that you really feel like you are qualified and this will be forgiven, again, reach out, send me an email, or give me a call, and I'd be happy to send you these documents. So, all right, with that, I'm going to turn this over to Paul, and Paul is going to share with you a little pandemic parable that he's discovered to kind of help you get through this.
You got to take this with somewhat of a sense of humor. So this is the book. You see, right? What is it? Who moved my cheese, right? So I have in my office, I have this library of self-help books, right? I've been doing this for 30 years. And my 9-year-old son comes up and he pulls out this book. I don't think it's coincidence. He says, Dad, what does this book mean? And I thought, oh my God, what a perfect book. And so I'd read it, 10 years. And I told her, I went, this should be who moved my cheese? And the answer should be COVID-19, right? So, we're looking at, normally the last recessions I've been through took 3-4 months. The banks failed, the real estate thing went down. They were sort of like, you could see it was coming, you rolled into it, and then you were in it, and then you were trying to get out of it. And the whole thing may have took 6-8 months to happen and 2 or 3 years to get over. We've been there. Well, this one happened in 2 weeks. So people are not used to that kind of rapid change. So this book, I think, is very useful for you or your employees, people that are trying to emotionally deal with the COVID-19. So it's a parable about 2 little mice and 2 little men, written by Spencer Johnson. And they do some writings on the wall here. And I think there's all really appropriate to our current situation. One is, what you are afraid of is never as bad as you imagine. The fear you let build up in your mind is worse than the situation that actually exists. Now, we've had the experience. We have the fortunate opportunity of dealing with 50 different construction companies that probably do, 400 or 500, 600 million, a lot of work. And from 2 people offices to 200 people offices. And there's been like 3 kind of reactions. One has been, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. The zombie apocalypse is here, and they just shut down. They quit our services, and they just hide. The other one has been, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared. What's going to happen? And they're running around and sort of, oh, it's all going to die. But they're not hiding. They're just freaked out. Then the third client, they're going, wow, this is a lot of fun. We got some new opportunities here. We have several clients that are hitting the road. They're making it exciting. They're looking at this as an opportunity, and they're taking a very proactive stance. And the fact that even fun, and they're having excitement about this whole thing. So there's like 3 kind of ways you can handle it. Okay, so we move on. Another thing the book says is the more important the cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. Now, what that means is if you, and the 2 little people in this parable, they get used to the cheese. There's the sniff and scurry are sort of running around, and they're going, hey, they're used to looking for stuff. And, what happens with the cheese eventually goes away, and they don't freak out. The other 2, which is him and Ha, have built an entire culture around where the cheese is. Like if you're used to marketing by letting the phone ring, that's comfortable. If you're used to marketing by having one architect that sends you all their work, that's comfortable. So the more comfortable you are, the harder it's going to be to make the change. But a couple of things will happen if you don't. Okay, moving on, Ed. If you don't change, you can become extinct. Now that's pretty direct, right? Like if you have a thing that's worked for you in the past, I mean, I have a client, for example, not in the construction business, but had a large catering business, like $3 million worth of catering, and they shut down catering in 2 days. And he has like 100 people and a big kitchen. So now he's delivering food. I'd do something, right? So he's got into the food delivery business. So you got to change your things, or change your diet. Okay, moving on. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Think about that. Let's assume it's all going to be good, and you weren't afraid of, oh my God, looking at your cash flow and looking at the money that you don't have and checking your checking account every week and doing calculations when you're going to die and who's quitting and looking at the half empty thing. We're all looking at who quit, not who stayed on, or who's what check am I not going to get this week, and we're focusing on the negative, which is not necessarily a good thing to do. Okay, moving on. Ed.
It's on.
Movement. Okay. Movement in a new direction helps you find new cheese. So like anything else, I had an idea, and we're trying it out, where people are calling architects and discussing, instead of can you give me a job, they're discussing the PPP loan and the CARES Act, and building relationships with architects with something other than give me a job. And it's worked. We've got a lot of people, got a lot of very positive responses. So if you start looking for stuff, it sort of evolves. You can't see around the corner till you get there, but you got to head in that direction. Next. Old beliefs do not lead to new cheese. Now, if you have a system that's worked for you, you waited for the phone to ring, you've hung on your reputation, you've worked with smaller jobs, I said you counted on one architect to give you work or one realtor, and you're hung up on, hey, it's worked before. I wouldn't necessarily it's going to work in the future. There is a technical revolution. I call it the digital transformation of the construction industry that's happening as we speak. It has to do with, Matterport photos. It has to do with, a whole kinds of things. What's happening is that like co-construct, those other things that people were thinking about using, they're happy. People are finding out. I have several clients. Hey, I can do everything from my house. I don't actually have to go into work. Inspectors are doing inspections with cell phones. Banks are deciding that they're, the next draw, the guy goes and gives them a, FaceTime photo with the thing and they're approved for the next draw. Some stuff that would have taken years to happen is happening in weeks now because we're all forced to do it. Next. I can't really see. When you
can see that you can find and enjoy new cheese, you change course.
Absolutely. So you can't see around the corner till you get there, but if you try a new marketing practice, like you're not going to go visit architects, but you can call them on the phone and have some discussions with them, or realtors, clients, past clients. Nobody wants to see you, but you can use the phone. So you may not have had the idea, well, I'm going to call all my old past clients and see, now that they're home all the time, what they don't like. That's new kinds of things. So those are actually things you can do, our clients are doing to make the most out of this. And some business is better than ever. Okay, Ed, I'm going to let you read those.
Yeah, David, do you want to read them?
Sure, why not? So the first one, this is kind of the summary. Change happens. So keep moving because they keep moving the cheese. Anticipate change, number 2. I'm having trouble reading it too. Can you pick it up?
Okay, Ed, you're on.
Sure. So number 2 is anticipate change. Get ready for the cheese to move. Okay. Number 3, monitor change. Smell the cheese often so you know when it's getting old. Number 4, adapt to change quickly. The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you can enjoy new cheese. Number 5, change. Move with the cheese. Number 6, enjoy change. Savor the adventure and the taste of new cheese. And lastly, be ready to quickly change again and again because they keep moving the cheese, folks. This is not going to be the last pandemic.
Right. And this book has sold over 10 million copies, so it was sort of popular. So it's
all right,
time.
Paul, I'm going to let you do a little preview of next week.
Okay. So next week, I think this is a really good time to take an economic advantage of recruiting and outplacement during the current pandemic. We have a recruiting company recruiting for like 25 construction companies around the country. Recruiting has never been better. I mean, as unemployment goes up, recruiting gets better. So we've had our pipelines triple in the last 2 weeks, incredibly qualified people. Now, one of the tools we use, whether it's outplacing old employees to find them a new job or qualifying the current employees, is an assessment program. And I can literally know more about you than your mom if you take a 45-minute test. And this has proved very well. I got a 90% hit rate on this one as far as placements go. It's a very good instrument for assessing your potential clients, your potential, I wish you'd give them to clients, but you can't, your potential employees or outplacing people. So in order to show you how it works, I mean, you really need to try it. So what we agreed to do is we're going to send everybody who's at this webinar the opportunity to take this assessment. And then next week, we're going to go over it with them. If you want to go for individually, we'll also make arrangements to do that. But it's a really good tool for finding good employees because right now, there's been no better time to find good employees. In fact, you read a couple articles about it, didn't you, Ed? About a good time to find
actually, I try to listen to a few podcasts, and this week when I was out on a run, I listened to a podcast, and it was a national real estate, and he said, what's happening now, and this happens in these times, are people that are in industries that are going to be affected in a long-term basis, industries like hospitality, restaurants. Those people are saying, look, you know what? It's time to find a new industry. And no one is going to stop living in their house. Matter of fact, they're spending more time in their house. So the housing industry is now seen as a growth in this post-pandemic age. it's seen as a growth industry. So a lot of people are moving from impacted industries like hospitality and restaurants and food service into growth industries like the housing industry. So he said that he's seeing that the pool of talent that's going to be coming into the residential construction industry in the next 6 months is going to be the best that we've seen in a long time.
Right. I guess we can announce the labor shortage is over in the construction industry. Yay!
Yes, exactly. So, all right. Well, we're just about out of time. I just wanted to put this slide up again. We've actually shown this on all 3 of our webinars, but I think it continues to be just as relevant today as it was when we first showed it 3 weeks ago. Be informed, stay connected, and keep positive. As you have seen, the information is changing all the time. You really need to be informed, but don't watch the news. That's just a recipe for getting you anxious and upset. There's a lot of really great information sources out there. Be selective, find a reputable, well-researched article and read that. Second, connect with your peers. If you're in a Builder 20 group or a Remodelers Advantage group, or I see a couple of people here from my construction collaborative here in San Diego, reach out to your peers. We used to meet once a month, our collaborative group did, and we're now meeting every Friday. We have a little 5 o'clock happy hour that we do, and everyone gets together and,
right.
and touches bases. So definitely.
And also
definitely
reaching out to your peers can be reaching out to architects, reaching out to real estate people. You know, in a foxhole, everybody's a friend when they're under attack. So we're in a little bit of a war now. Everybody's in the same foxhole. So it's a great time to initiate and enhance the relationships with people that matter in your business.
Who are sharing the same concerns, Paul. I mean, really, It's like, let's share how we're going to get through this.
Yeah. And the thing is, look, no one knows when this is going to end. We know it's going to end at some point, but no one knows how it's going to end. So be optimistic about the long term. That's the best that we can do, but focus on short-term solutions. Last week, David talked about just coming in and looking at what can I do today? What can I do this week? What things can I control? Focus on those short-term solutions. And then also be selective as to who you share your concerns with, right? Your employees are not the people that you want to share your financial and cash flow concerns with. If your wife's in the business, then obviously you want to talk to her about that. But if she's not, and you've got kids home from school and she's got a whole bunch of her own stresses, you don't necessarily want to be sharing that with them. We're perfect people to share it with. We are happy to share any kind of concerns. We're great at giving advice, perspective, encouragement, and that's really what's important at this time. And lastly, recognize that this too shall pass. We will all get through this together. So I want to also let you know we have another resource. While today was really just about an information dump, on Wednesdays, we're doing weekly group coaching sessions where we're not only sharing some of this same information that we're providing here on the website, but we're also giving people an opportunity to share their experiences, to be able to give us information about the various areas of what's going on in the country, and also to provide that same peer-to-peer support so that you can connect with your peers and we can support each other and guide each other and inspire each other through these challenging times. So again, we're doing these webinars every Friday. We'll be back here again next Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. If you've already signed up for this webinar, you've signed up for the entire series. So you will get a notice to join for our webinar next week.
Right. And we're also available for questions because some people do not want to, ask questions in a public forum. So we're free, it won't cost you anything. Give us a call. We got a lot of best practices going on because we're working with 50 clients. Everybody's doing something right. So always learning every day. So give us a call. Happy to talk to you. Again, no charge. There's our contact information, and hopefully we can help. So feel free. And again, we will be sending you the assessment, so you'll be able to complete that. I really recommend you do that because next week we're going to go over that assessment, and you can use it as a tool for outplacing companies, for even evaluating company employees, and all especially for interviewing potential applicants, so you can make sure that when you hire somebody out of this new great labor pool, that they're the right person.
So I can see there's still several questions we didn't answer, but rather than taking up more time, we really want to keep this to the 30 minutes. If we didn't get to your answer, please pick up the phone, give us a call, shoot us an email. We'd be happy to answer any and all questions that you have. And thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all again next Friday.
Next week. Thanks for coming.
Take care.